I think right now, when we're not profitable early in this type of an economy where we have political change, where we have a pandemic climate, where we've got, very interesting economics with adding so much money into the economy and, a high unemployment rate. Like, this is the ingredient for opportunity down the road, but I still think it's a little bit early. I mean, I almost thought that it would be here in a bigger way than it already is, but the good news is people are resilient and they're resourceful. Money can be complicated. Let a nerd help you. We're here to demystify the complex nature of money by getting you answers from financial nerds and whiz kids. Welcome to Ask the Money Nerds, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we answer your most pressing money questions. Hey, is now the time to buy assets or businesses? When does it make sense to use your cash in order to acquire real estate or even expand your existing business if you're already an entrepreneur? Philippa, what's up?
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
All right.
It's a great question because some people, especially in, the current circumstances that we are, where there's a lot changing, if people are sitting in cash, they want to take advantage of opportunities that are coming down the pipeline or that are currently presented to themselves. But sometimes it's a question within us and with all of us, like, is now the right time? Should I move now or do I wait? And is this the best, situation for me? So Patty, who is a small business owner and owns a burger restaurant with her husband, wrote in with a question about acquiring a property to expand their business.
All right. Let's dive in.
Okay, so Patty's question. My husband and I own a small burger restaurant. We always knew we would definitely expand once we find a location. We just found a Thai restaurant and she's willing to sell the foundation of the facility, not the establishment and clientele, for $80,000. We are in the process of purchasing this restaurant. This purchase will wipe out our cash flow. I've been discussing frustration to my husband that we are overpaying for a business that we are taking over the established business with clientele just to buy the foundation. I've been listening to you for a while, and I know you mentioned after this whole pandemic, there will be a bunch of businesses for sale. Please help me with your opinion on this. Is it better to wait for a location instead of cashing in on a non-existing business for our business?
All right.
Yeah. Should she make a purchase now or should she wait to see if something, comes down the pipeline that's a better opportunity?
Being totally illiquid is dangerous, especially considering we're discussing restaurant business, which some restaurants are actually doing better, right? Because of maybe people are ordering and drivers are driving and dropping it off more than maybe like the sit down, dine in type of places. But
some restaurants are doing well because they pivoted really quickly.
But I feel like it's really essential to have cash on hand for a few reasons. Number one, our peace of mind. When we're illiquid, we're more likely to chase bad profits, lose sleep, increase our worry, do things just to make ends meet, put our credit at risk, put our livelihood at risk. That creates anger, resentment, frustration that can show up in our relationships, that can show up in like insane thinking inside of our minds. And I don't think we give us credit as individuals that we're the greatest asset. And sure, something might have the potential to make money, but if it destroys your life along the way, if you feel like you have to sacrifice so much to get there, I have a line in my one-man show that says, sacrifice wants us to think it's a temporary guest, right? Just this once, but it creates habits that permanently stay.
That's the truth.
And that would be my big concern. And it already sounds like there's potential contention with her and her husband based upon this decision. So, I think that how quickly would this break even? How soon could you start creating cash flow with this? These are essential questions to be asking, What are the expenses to fix this up with whatever foundation it is to get it to the point where it could open? And what amount of time does that take? And what does that do to the existing restaurant? And could that attention, when it's taken away from the other restaurant, start to become a problem in that restaurant? So there's this notion that people should have multiple streams of income. There's books on it. There's people that talk about it. But my problem with streams is when one stream dries up and you go to pay attention to that, the other streams are in jeopardy. Because if all the attention's trying to fix something broken, then the things that are great don't get the same level of attention. And so that's another piece that I would really look for. So, is there any discount to this? And is there a way to be patient to wait for where there's more distress, where you could really bail someone out that really desperately needs to get out of a situation that allows you to help them out and at the same time be profitable from day one? I think right now, when we're not profitable early in this type of an economy where we have political change, where we have a pandemic climate, where we've got, very interesting economics with adding so much money into the economy and, a high unemployment rate. Like, this is the ingredient for opportunity down the road, but I still think it's a little bit early. I mean, I almost thought that it would be here in a bigger way than it already is, but the good news is people are resilient and they're resourceful. Yeah. And that resilience and resourcefulness has kind of helped some situations out, but I don't think we've got to the worst of it yet. I don't think we've seen what the real long-term ramifications are. And I would hate to see someone get overextended, because then you have less room for error. And look, we all make mistakes as part of the process. Mm-hmm. As a business owner, you have a series of imperfections and you continually adjust those types of things. But it's when those become insurmountable that it starts to create, problems where it stifles our creative thinking. It stifles our ability to create value, and we get stuck in survival. And survival becomes a pretty selfish state of being rather than focused on what we can do to advance and help other people. We get to a place where we're just trying to take care of ourselves. And I'm not judging the person for it. I've been there. I've made those same mistakes, but it can really prolong the process.
Yeah. And I would add that when we're in scarcity, it makes it difficult to connect with other people, right? Because out of fear. And I think when we look at investments, like we talk a lot about investing in relationships, and I don't want to be too forward with this because I don't know their situation, but if there is some contention between disagreement on this business issue, like making the investment in, the marriage first and the business partnership first, that way when you do expand, you're building upon a solid foundation, and they may already have that. But I just think sometimes when it comes to expansion, it adds more stress.
Yeah. What's the purpose? Like, Are you doing well now? Mm-hmm. And how much better would you be doing? And what's the cost, right? Yeah. What's the cost from a time standpoint? Mm-hmm. What types of opportunity cost is there? What would you not be doing that you're doing today because you're doing this instead? Yeah. And is it something, a story that I can share is a good friend of mine, Chris Zato, at one time was thinking he wanted to build a bunch of more practices. And after analyzing with him, it was like, no, you've got this amazing practice. What if you just taught people what you did so that they could do similar things to improve the industry? And that was a little less complicated than setting up a bunch of other offices that could take more risk, more time, and not necessarily be what he truly wanted. It was just kind of the thought of, let's scale for scale's sake. Right. And when I was in my 20s, it was all about more, bigger, better, right? And so the answer was always more. But why? Mm-hmm. Is that really what you want? Yeah. Get clear about what you want, what value you're going to create. If it's consistent with the lifestyle, consider the quality of life that you have, and consider whether or not you're really ready for this responsibility or stewardship. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, maybe it's not the right time. Doesn't mean that it's never the right time. And it's not even discounting that this could be the right decision. Right. But it kind of reminds me of the idea optimizer, that we have in the Win Then Play playbook, where it's like these questions, which is like, is this aligned with your business or personal mission? What kind of capacity do you currently have? How quickly could this be profitable? It's like a series of questions to really start to understand whether this is the right thing to do or not. Mm-hmm. Right. It reminds me of the conversation that we have about quality of life. What is the kind of life that you want to live? Thinking through the details of what you want your life to look like and feel like, and focusing on that piece of the equation. I think the program Wealth Factory has, which is wealthfactory.com/scale, SCALE, wealthfactory.com/scale, which has our CMO Matt and our chairman Norm, and has Brandon Allen, the business coach. It has like some really good insight. I'm part of that program as well, of how do you make sure you scale appropriately. Now, this is something that's for sale. So something that someone would buy to get access to this program. It's not one of the free downloads that a lot of times that we offer here on YouTube, but I think it's a very valuable before making this decision. Mm-hmm. So, do you have any advice for Patty and her husband when it comes to negotiating discounts on properties that might be distressed, or, it doesn't sound like this business owner that they're purchasing from is in a tight spot, but maybe. So are there any tips on negotiation? I mean, it's really important to find out what the other person's currency is. What is it they really want? What is they're looking for? Is it time off? Is it freedom? Is it just they they really want to have more money. Like, what is it that they really want? I remember having a situation years ago where I had a fourplex. It was a commercial property in Franklin, Tennessee, and I had a personal guarantee on it, but my partner kind of got in a bad spot and declared bankruptcy. So now I'm stuck with this, and it was not the best property in the commercial space. The anchor store kind of went under. And so all of a sudden we're kind of sucking wind on this thing. And that was just me because the partner went. So I actually flew out to Tennessee and I met with the bank and I was like, what do you want? They're like, we want a check today. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So what else could we do? And when I really figured out what they were looking for and what was going to work for them, what could work for me, which did take an extra meeting, because the first one I just kind of felt like they were just lashing out at me. The second one we got realistic, and then I created a solution. So figure out the person's currency, figure out what they want. I'm not the best negotiator. I kind of like, you know what my hand is when I'm playing. I'm not one to hold it close to the vest. I'm kind of really transparent. And I think for the right person, that works really well. For someone that might be trying to take advantage, maybe it doesn't work quite as well. But I think conversation and communication is key. But you got to begin with, what is it you want? Otherwise, you might go beyond the boundaries of the guardrails. Like my friend Rich Christensen wrote the book Zigzag Principle and says you got to have the guardrails, right? So you don't go off track. You got to know where your break-even points are so you know whether this is going to happen or not. And you got to focus on cash flow first so that you don't just eat up all your resources. Because even if you have this vision, and the vision's down the road to have multiple places and expand, you've got to zigzag your way there. Cash flow, resources, then scalability. And if you move to scalability too quick, it can destroy your cash flow, consume your life, take way too much time, and you'll long for the days where you just had the one burger joint, right? So there's people that do it right. Make sure you're doing it in the best way possible, and you're asking the questions up front now. I think the resources and scale is going to be awesome.
Yeah, and I have one reminder for Patty and anybody that's listening. It's easy when there's an opportunity that presents itself that if you do let this opportunity pass and you decide it's not best for you, that it can be easy to fall into scarcity. Like, I just missed an opportunity. But just a reminder from me to people that are listening, there are many opportunities. There's always going to be more opportunities. They might look different. They might feel different. It might not be exactly what you wanted, but there are abundance of opportunities. And so to say no to something now doesn't mean you're saying no to the opportunity of scaling and growing and creating the life that you love down the road and in the future.
I feel like you get to sign off because that was a pretty good mic drop right there.
Boom.
Want to continue the path to be a better investor? Make sure that you're not losing money and taking too much risk? Well, click here and learn about strengths vesting.